So today we are going to cover. We're going to do kind of the book learning part of it, the terminology, and we're going to see some samples. But we're all going to do it from a lesson plan essentially. But the second part of this exercise is going to take place on Thursday at 10 o'clock instead of the normal Zoom that we will have on Thursday. We will not have Zoom on Thursday. Instead, we're going to have an on site um, uh, field trip, if you will. We're actually going to go to a local house nearby. Don't ask me which one. I don't know yet. I got to find one, but probably a local listing from one of our listing agents within the brokerage, hopefully somewhere very close to the office. I will announce the location long ahead of time so that everybody has time to prepare. And we will meet at that location and we're going to literally walk through the house. I'll do the Vanna White thing and point to all of the features and a lot of the things that we're going to talk about today, and we'll talk about them in greater detail. We'll talk about what inspectors like to see, what they don't like to see, things that you might frequently have to explain to your clients about the nature of their home, the construction of their home. All of these things are going to help you to be able to speak the language of real estate in terms of terminology when it comes to the house. Okay, you got to be able to um, adequately, if not eloquently, describe what's going on in a particular feature of the house. Remember, you're going to be doing things like an amendment to address concerns where you're having to explain why you need to have that garage door replaced or why there needs to be a sister joist hung on that rafter in the attic. All things that we see all the time and very easy to deal with. But if you're not speaking the same language as the inspector, you're going to be challenged. Okay. So if you will, that's what we're going to do today. And I know a couple people just joined in, but we're going to talk about terminology of the home today. If you will click over on the chat on your on the Zoom, you will see glossary of home terminology, a PDF that I have attached to the chat. I would request that is actually, I'm not going to do slideshow. We're actually going to work from within that PDF. So if you want to open that up and save this thing to your desktop or somewhere where you know you can access it, this is basically a little glossary of home terminology. Go ahead, Letitia.
I don't see anything in the chat unless I'm doing it wrong.
Um, there's a chat box at the bottom.
Yeah,
If
I
you
don't
click on
see
that,
any document though.
I don't
you
either.
don't. Okay, let me try it again. I mean, literally, I'm looking at it right now, but let me see if I can do this. Now, do you see it?
Yes.
Ta-da. Okay, so I must have I put it in there before you all joined, so it must not make it available to you until you actually join. So, okay, so let's everybody open up the glossary of home terminology. And this is a pretty long document, y'all. So if you want to, you can save it. If you also want to, you can print this thing. Um, and in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through every single term or every definition on this page. To be honest with you, what I would like to do is the ones that are the most that need to be covered the most are typically the ones with the photographs in them. So that's kind of what we're going to do today is we're going to go down through and we're going to look at these terms and we're going to define and just review what a bay window looks like. All right. However, if you have a question about one of the other terms that you're seeing that we're not covering, by all means, raise the red flag, put your hand in the air, scream, holler, and we'll talk about it. If you're confused on it, someone else is likely to be the same. All right. So I am going to share my screen. All right, y'all looking at the glossary now? All right. So the first thing I would like to cover is bay window. What is the definition of a bay window? Well, you're looking at one in that photograph. This one's a little different. Typically, you don't see a bay window in stone, but hey, it's a bay window. Okay. Bay windows typically have three sides, and the two sides on the edges are angular in nature and then flat sticking out, and it essentially creates a bay shape within the room inside. Quite often, you'll see it covered with a metal roof like this. And by the way, does anybody know what kind of metal roof this is called? Extra credit if anybody gets it. Go ahead, Letitia. You raise your hand. Oh, she's muted.
Standing seam. Standing seam.
Standing seam 10. You know what?
Yeah,
We are in the presence of an architect, y'all.
I
I
know.
should have
Unfair
remembered.
advantage.
You do have an unfair advantage. Letitia is an architect, so she knows this stuff inside and out. So maybe I should defer to her on some of this stuff. All right, so that is a bay window. And just out of curiosity, we're going to look at another type of window later called a box window, and we're going to determine what the difference between those two are. Okay, we are going to go, oh, well, here we go. It's actually the next image that we have. It is this one, which is the box window. And you actually can see it in the highlighted in the group, the light blue or whatever this color is over here to the right. So a box window juts out from the main plane of the house, but instead of having three planes to it, or three planes, it actually has three sides to it also, but they're not angled, they're boxed. Okay. So in other words, these sides are perpendicular to the main portion of the house. Does that make sense? Okay. Let's keep going. I love cathedral ceilings. So we're going to see a lot of terms demonstrated in this particular photograph. All right. So this picture shows, amongst other things, a cathedral ceiling. What defines a cathedral ceiling? Is it these beams? Do you guys think? Or is it the nature of the fact that it looks like a cathedral with the arch or with the peaked top? What do you guys think? Letitia is giving you the international signal for it is actually the peaked top. So any room with an angular ceiling to it that comes to a peak, it could be termed as a cathedral ceiling. Um, does anybody want to talk about any of the other terms or home terms that we're likely to be talking about within that are demonstrated in this photograph? What do you see right here above the fireplace? Somebody unmute and say the word. Okay, somebody's not unmuting, but I think they're saying mantle. Great job. Thank you very much. The mantle is right above the fireplace. Let's look at some other terms. What are you looking at right here in the bottom left corner of the photograph? That railing and what's underneath of the railing? What are the vertical parts that hold the railing up? What are they called? Anybody know? Go ahead, Tracy. I know you want to say something.
Posts or spindles or
Spindles is one term for them. Balusters is the other one. The baluster is the vertical portion that basically prevents a child or someone from falling through the railing of the stairs. Okay. What kind of a window is this up here? Anybody want to tell me? A particular type of window is characterized by the round arched feature at the top, and it's typically called a palladium window. Okay, hopefully that helps. All right. So let's any other questions about any other element? What okay, we ignored the elephant in the room. You've got these great big arched trusses up here. Does anybody know what the terminology behind these are? It's two words. Timber frame. These are timber framed trusses that are holding up, or at least look to be appear to be holding up the cathedral ceiling within this room. Okay, so these are timber frame trusses, and technically, if you want to really get down to it, these are actually timber. The reason they're timber frame is because they're using timber mortise and tenon joinery to create the structure to hold up that ceiling. Okay, love timber frame. Creates such a unique look to a home. All right. Any other questions about anything on that particular photograph? All right.
Are they timber frame because of the way that it's shaped? Because I thought they were beams. So like, if it's straight, is it beams? But if it's curved, it's timber frame.
No, I mean, it could also basically, if all you had was this particular element, the vertical portion, or the portion that the roof actually rests again, that is a beam, but this is a timber frame. So the frame provides more of the structural support than just a beam. Does that make sense?
Got it.
Okay. And it doesn't have to be curved in order for it to be called a timber frame either. All right. So what do we see in this picture? Pictured in the light blue. What is this feature called? It is the chair rail. And then everybody asks the question, why is it called a chair rail? Well, because if you were to set the corner, like it's typically found in a dining room or a formal room like this, where you might have this dining room chair sitting against that wall, and you don't want the back of the chair to rest against the wall and damage the wall. So you put a railing there, and that is called a chair railing. All right. So the long horizontal piece that's about 3 or 4 feet up the wall is called the chair railing. All right. What would you call this entire piece right here? Everything from the chair railing down to the floor. What is it called? Survey says starts with a W. Anybody know? Somebody knew. Go ahead and say it again.
Wainscoting.
Thank you, Miss Tracy. It is wainscoting. So the entire portion from the chair railing down to the floor, with this type of beading effect and panel looking feature to it, that is typically called wainscoting. Okay. Also pictured in this room, if you look up at the ceiling, is we're going to look at the next feature, which is called a coffered ceiling. Coffered ceiling is characterized by these beams and the recessed coffers within the ceiling. What is its purpose? I guess at one point it probably provided some structure. Nowadays, it's often simply a feature of higher end homes where it just provides architectural interest. I think it also, to a certain extent, provides some sound deadening, and it just provides more anything visual interest than anything. And it's usually found in higher end homes. Because guess what? It's expensive. You got to pay somebody to go up there and cut all of those miters into those corners and make it look perfect, and then paint it. And millwork is expensive, and good quality millwork is a real hallmark of a good quality home. Okay, so that's coffered ceilings. Crown molding could also be used in conjunction with a coffered ceiling, but in this case, the crown molding is what we're looking at the top of the wall, where the wall meets the ceiling. In this case, we have 2 layers of it, one on the main ceiling and one on the, what is the term for this recessed portion of a ceiling above in a room? Anybody want to tell me?
Tray ceiling.
Tray ceiling. Tracy's got it. And why is it called a tray ceiling? The best I could tell you is if you turn this image upside down, think of a lunch tray at your middle school cafeteria. Turn it upside down, place it against the ceiling, and it looks like a tray. That's how I've remembered tray ceilings. I flashback to middle school cafeteria lunch trays. Okay. Again, what else do you see in this picture? A different variety of this, but what do you see on this wall? I see wainscoting. And I see a chair railing. In this case, the chair railing is a little bit higher than in the previous picture, but good nonetheless. Okay. All right. Now we're going to talk about dormers. All right. This photograph, this image depicts a dormer, which is a window, a vertical window that it juts out from a sloped roof plane. Okay. So in this case, there are 3 dormers. And if you really want to get technical, because of the shape, this arched, or not arch shape, but this peaked shape, it's technically a gable dormer. There's also something called a shed dormer. If I see a picture, we'll talk about that here in a minute too. Does anybody know the architectural style? What would you call a house that looks similar to this? There are 2 names for it, and if Tracy doesn't know it, I know Letitia's going to know it. Go ahead, Tracy.
Oh, is that the
Do you know
gable?
what this is? Say it again.
Is that the gable?
Well, this is a gable dormer. This
Gable
style
dormer.
of home is typically called a Cape Cod, or in
Oh, sorry.
some cases, it's also called a salt box style home, believe it or not. And what a salt box or even a Cape Cod style house is characterized is it looks like a single story house from the outside because it's got this large roof line, but there's technically a second story tucked up underneath of that roof line. And often a great way to add light and space to a room that's tucked up on a second floor underneath of a roof line like this is through the use of a dormer, like what you see pictured in this photograph. Is that clear? Has everybody got it? Any confusion on that at all? All right, now we're going to talk about terminology on the roof line, and the big one is the eaves. All right, so we're going to talk about several terms here where the eaves is the big one, but basically what you're looking at, the eaves is the lower part of a roof plane that extends outward from the wall structure. So from here, from where you see the wall meets and the lower portion of the roof that juts out underneath of it, that is called the eave. This entire thing is called the eave. All right, but then within that, we've got some additional structures that are pictured. Okay, so let me move down. I think there's more images, elevation. All right, here's what I was wanting to get to is this image. And I apologize because this picture is not in your version. I will update it when we're done because I just literally added this. The fascia is the portion that is the vertical underneath of the roof line, typically behind the guttering. Okay, is this big enough for everybody? Maybe I can make this bigger. Hey, there we go. How's this? All right, so the soffit is the underneath portion of the eave. The fascia is the vertical portion. Then you have the guttering, and a barge board is what is on the end of a gambrel. I don't think you need to know that one, to be honest with you. I very rarely use the term barge board for what it's worth. Okay, any questions on those? All right, let's talk terminology. We had already talked about this. A gambrel or a gable is the angled portion of the roof. So this depicts a gable roof. Let's look at a gambrel. Oftentimes, when you see this arched shape with shingles on an angled portion of the roof line, this is called a gambrel roof. You see this often in homes around the late 70s, early 80s. This was an architectural style that was pretty prevalent about that time frame. This is also called by a different term. It is, I don't know if a slang term, but you can also call it a Dutch roof line because if you hadn't noticed, this is very similar, and you see this often in properties that have origins in the Dutch area in Holland. Barns are real prevalent to having gambrel roofs, so you might see it as a barn gambrel type roof line. Okay. Gull wing roof windows. I don't think you're going to see that. We don't do a whole lot of these here because it's simply an Arizona thing. But I thought it was interesting enough to put a picture in there. All right. We are going to talk about a hip roof, and in particular, we're going to talk about hip roofs and half hips. This one is a half hip. So what you see is this clipped off portion of a gambrel roof line that creates this little triangular portion here that is called a half hip. And it's called a half hip because it doesn't extend all the way down to the bottom of the roof line. Let's show you a hip roof. A hip roof looks like this. And the reason why it's not a half hip is because it extends all the way down to the bottom of the eaves. Okay, makes sense? Hopefully I don't need to say this. Everybody knows HVAC and what it stands for, right? Heating, ventilation, air conditioning. Believe it or not, I told somebody that the other day. I said, you know, your HVAC, and they were like, what? Your air conditioning. Heating and air conditioning. That's what you need to know. All right. Sharing my screen again. All right. Okay. Knee wall. A knee wall is a short wall on the upper floor that is not the regular height because the roof plane extends through its surface at the lower point. You will see this often in bonus rooms, above garages, that's, to be honest with you, that's the place you see it most often. And this is very prototypical of a Georgia bonus room above a garage space. This may be full height, it may be a slightly reduced height, but essentially you get a reduced room size simply because the ceiling clips the corners of the full height of the wall. And what you have is this wall that is vertical, and it is a knee wall. Theoretically, it only could go up to around your knees or some portion of your knees. That's a good way to remember it. But essentially what you're looking at is this. Okay. Oftentimes you'll see a small doorway in these because this is a perfect place for storage behind there. So this is where you can put your Christmas tree decorations and your Halloween decorations when you're not in that part of the year. And I love to be able to point that out to people. Great location for storage. Okay, keeping going. All right, now let's talk about some stair terminology. All right, first off, what are we looking at in this vertical post on the end right here? What type of post is this? All together now, unmute collectively, and everybody say it together.
The banister. Is that what that is?
The entire railing system is often called the banister. This particular brown post has a particular term. Does anybody want to take another guess? Oh, come on. This is the newel post. It is the one post at the end that provides the main structure. It has to be particularly strong because it's the anchoring point. Personal pet peeve is a newel post that rocks or creaks or moves. That thing should be rock solid. Okay. So that is the newel post. These vertical are often called either the spindles or the balusters. We'd already talked about that. This is called the handrail. Okay, and this would be called the base rail of a stair. Okay. Any questions on that? Letitia, if you got other terms or if I mess anything up, please chime in. Okay. All right. Now we are going to talk, what's the next image here? We're going to talk about a pillar. So a column is another word for it, but a pillar is a great term for it. I don't think we need to belabor that point. Okay, does anybody know what this structure is here? It's a wall that
Pony wall.
separates a room, but it doesn't go the full height of the ceiling.
Pony wall.
Good job, Tracy Leaf, for the win. This is called a pony wall. It's a framed wall that extends to a shorter foundation wall to a full height. Okay, so it comes up but doesn't go all the way to the ceiling. Okay. I love this one. The on certain types of construction homes, these columns that look like they are the main corner structure. That term QUOIN is often is pronounced coin, just as in the change that you carry in your pocket. A coin. It is pronounced exactly the same. But these blocks, the stone blocks, sometimes they're real, sometimes they are stucco or made out of stucco and look artificial. But that is called a coin. A great architectural feature. A lot of times you find it on most upper end homes, I would say, but some of the lower end ones too, that they want to look like upper end. All right, so rafters, obviously an inclined roof framing member. These could be called rafters. These could also be called timber frame rafters or timber frame trusses. But essentially the rafter is the part that holds up the roof that provides the structure underneath of the roof line. Trying to see, anybody want to call out anything, any other definitions of terms that we've also talked about in this photograph? I can see some stair railings and balusters and a tread riser back there. That's about it in that photograph. Okay, let's keep going. We're gonna go, and I'm already running out of time, folks. So some of this we're not gonna be able to cover. Slider doors, obviously, these are often called barn doors. These are getting real popular these days. And so much more. Okay, this is really important. I want to talk about this. All right, so this home is the difference between a split level and a split foyer is going to be the last thing we're going to talk about today. What do y'all think? Which one is this one? Is this a split level or a split foyer? And how can you tell?
Split foyer.
I couldn't hear anybody. Say again.
Split foyer. The way you can tell is the split foyer. When you come up the stairs and you come in, it's a small little foyer, and there's stairs that go up and there's stairs that go down. With the split level, it's actually when you come in, you have a living room, a dining room, a kitchen, and then you have an upstairs and a downstairs, and that's what makes it a split level.
Okay, yeah. So she's pretty much nailed it. So this picture depicts a split foyer, okay? And the way you can tell a split foyer from the outside is just by looking at the facade of the house. So we can tell, basically draw a line across here. The downstairs is below, the upstairs is above, but look at the position of the door. The door is literally splitting the difference between the upstairs and the downstairs. So just inside of that door is, of course, going to be the foyer. That foyer is split between the upstairs and the downstairs. So typically when you walk into the house, this is the image that you see. The doorway is split and you have a stairway that goes down and a stairway that goes up. Okay. And that is contrasted against a split level home, which is depicted in this photograph. This is a split level because basically you can see right here, The main entrance is on the same plane as the first floor of the house. So just as Sasha said, theoretically, somewhere behind this window, you're probably going to find the living room and maybe the kitchen on the backside, things like that. And then there's going to be a stairway that's going to go up to the bedrooms on this level and a stairway that's going to go down to the garage and the basement on the lower level. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay. When we go on our field trip on Thursday, I'm literally going to point out houses and we're going to go through and say, okay, which one is that? Split foyer, split level, just to kind of help you refine that skill level on Thursday. Okay. So unfortunately, I am out of time. I didn't cover everything, but you've got the materials, you've got the glossary. Hopefully, you saved that on your desktop or somewhere where you can access it. Hopefully, you find that helpful and useful going forward. Don't forget Thursday. Watch Workplace for the announcement for the location that we will be meeting at on Thursday. It'll be somewhere close by the office. Hopefully, Lord willing, if I can find a location. And then we will do this in the field and we're going to talk about and demonstrate all of these things and much, much more. Okay.
Excellent.
We're gonna dive into closets. We're gonna talk about whether or not that heating system is a gas hot water heater or an electric hot water heater. How do you tell the difference? All of those things we're going to talk about when we hit the field on Thursday. So be looking forward to that. I'm excited about it. And it's always very popular, always gets lots of rave reviews. Hopefully you guys will enjoy it too. All right.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. Thanks, Jay.
Have a
Thank
great day, everybody.